The third meeting, does it work? The third meeting of the 63rd session of the Commission for Social Development is called to order. I invite the Commission to resume its general discussion under Agenda Item 3A and B. Before giving the floor to the first speaker, I would like to remind delegations that inscription in the list of speakers for the general discussion using the e-speakers module will close at 6 p.m. tomorrow. I would also like to remind delegations to respect the agreed time limits of 7 minutes for delegations speaking on behalf of groups and 5 minutes for member states speaking in their national capacity. A digital speech timer is visible on the screen to assist the speakers in managing their time. The microphone will be automatically muted when the allotted speaking time has elapsed. I wish to recommend that delegations refer intermittently to the updated live list of speakers in the e-speakers module on e-delegates so that they are ready to speak when given the floor. I thank you for your understanding and cooperation. I now give the floor to the representative of Chile on behalf of the group of Friends of Older Persons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, it is an honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the group of Friends of Older Persons at this 63rd session of the Commission for Social Development. Aging is a shared journey, one that transcends borders, cultures, and generations. Older persons are essential contributors to the fabric of our societies, economies, and cultures. Their wisdom, skills, and experience enrich our communities immeasurably as they serve as caregivers, workers, volunteers, and advocates. Nevertheless, they are still too often seen merely as recipients of care and beneficiaries of policies. It is imperative that we move beyond outdated perceptions of aging as a burden. Instead, we must embrace the opportunities that aging populations present, fostering innovation and progress by recognizing and amplifying the contributions of older persons. Social inclusion of older persons must extend beyond ensuring access to services. It involves fostering environments where older persons can meaningfully participate in and actively contribute to every aspect of society. Unfortunately, too many older persons still face barriers such as ageism, discrimination, and exclusion, which limit their ability to fulfill their potential and shorten their life expectancy. We must actively promote and support initiatives that foster a positive public image of older persons, highlighting the invaluable contributions they make to their families, communities, and societies. To address these challenges, we must focus on key areas. These include, but are not limited to, digital inclusion. Technology holds immense potential to empower older persons, but only if it is designed to be accessible and inclusive. By equipping older persons with the tools and skills to engage in the digital era, we can connect them to opportunities, services, and their communities. Economic inclusion, ensuring access to decent work, adequate income, and robust social protection systems is critical to safeguarding the well-being and dignity of older persons. Cultural inclusion. Older persons are the custodians of traditions, languages, religion, and belief. They hold a particularly important role in preserving indigenous manifestations of culture. Policies that celebrate and protect these contributions enhance societal cohesion and cultural richness. We should recognize older persons not as a passive recipients of care and assistance, nor as an impending burden on our welfare systems and economies, but as active and vital contributors to society. As we approach the fifth review and appraisal of the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging, we underscore its significance in guiding national and regional responses to aging within the broader framework of global commitments, including the Copenhagen Declaration. This review process provides a pivotal opportunity to reflect on progress while focusing on implementation, innovation, and inclusion. Solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion require collaborative action. Governments, civil society, the private sector, and international organizations must join forces to design and implement policies that prioritize older persons while advancing equitable development for all. As we renew our commitment to the principles of the Copenhagen Declaration, let us reaffirm that older persons are not merely recipients of support, but active agents of change, resilience, and innovation. Their full participation is essential to building inclusive, just, and sustainable societies. The group of Friends of Older Persons remains steadfast in its dedication to these objectives and stands ready to work with all partners to ensure that aging is celebrated as a life cycle process and a foundation for cohesive and inclusive societies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the representative of Chile, and I now give the floor to the representative of Suriname on behalf of the Caribbean Community CARICOM.
Thank you. I'm here. Thank you for giving me the floor, Chair. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the 14 member states of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, at this 63rd session of the Commission for Social Development. We extend congratulations to you, Chair, as well as to the other members of the Bureau on your election to guide the work of the Commission this session. Rest assured of the support of our delegations. CARICOM aligns itself with a statement to be delivered by the distinguished representative of Iraq on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. Chair, as we prepare for the second World Social Summit in November, we welcome the momentum that this year's priority theme will generate in pursuit of our common goal to eradicate poverty in all its forms and dimensions. Our commitment to leaving no one behind beckons us to strengthen our solidarity, social inclusion, and cohesion to live up to the promises we made 30 years ago at the World Summit for Social Development. In our region, while some progress has been made to deliver on our promise of social development for our people, some challenges persist and we have stymied our progress. As small island developing and low-lying coastal states, we remain concerned that we are facing the unrelenting and compounding impacts of climate change, as well as other health and social-related challenges and economic vulnerabilities. At the same time, we are mindful that persistent inequality and transformative trends such as rapid digitalization and aging populations are reshaping the global social development agenda. In view of this reality, the member states of CARICOM are committed to working collaboratively to building resilient society by inter alia strengthening our social protection system and continue to invest in human capital. Chair, CARICOM once again underscores the importance of education as a cornerstone of our social development policies. In this regard, advancing human capital development is a key pillar of our region's social development framework. Accordingly, CARICOM continues to work actively towards the implementation of its Human Resource Development 2030 strategy as well as the relevant SDGs. Against this backdrop, an inclusive and strategic approach to effectively respond to the emerging challenges faced by our region is being undertaken as part of our education transformation. Chair, CARICOM reiterates the need for North-South, South-South, and triangular cooperation aimed at building resilience, reducing inequalities, and elevating poverty, and to realize the commitments made in the Copenhagen Declaration and Program of Action and those contained in the 2030 Agenda. In addition, in order to achieve sustainable development and resilient prosperity, we reiterate the need for assistance for SIDS to diversify economies and strengthen state and productive capacities. Chair, CARICOM reaffirms our commitment to multilateralism and the hope it offers to deliver actions that address the critical priorities of our times. In this connection, the adoption last September of the Pact for the Future and it annexes the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration on Future Generation present an opportunity to scale up efforts to prevent people falling back into poverty, including by establishing well-designed, sustainable, and efficient social protection systems for all that are responsive to shocks. In closing, Chair, strengthening solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion to accelerate the delivery of the commitments of the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development and Program of Action of the World Summit for Social Development, as well as the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, requires innovative and inclusive partnerships. In this connection, CARICOM member states stand ready to engage with the rest of the international community as we collectively work towards leaving no one behind. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Suriname, and I now give the floor to the representative of Egypt on behalf of the African Group.
Thank you very much, distinguished chairperson. On behalf of the African Group, I congratulate you on your successful election and that of your bureau and express confidence in your able leadership. Mr. Chair, poverty in all its forms and dimensions and manifestations, including extreme poverty, remains the greatest global challenge, and its eradication is indispensable for the achievement of sustainable development globally. The African Group welcomes progress made toward the full implementation of the Copenhagen Declaration and the Program of Action through concerted action at the national, regional, and global levels. However, we remain deeply concerned that 30 years after convening of the World Summit for Social Development, such progress has been slow and even uneven between and within countries and regions, and major gaps, wide gaps, I have to say, remain. We are hopeful that the second World Summit for Social Development would identify the gaps and recommit to the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development and the Program of Action and its implementation, and give momentum toward the implementation of the 2030 Agenda in line with the commitments to invest in people, to end poverty, leave no one behind, and strengthen trust and social cohesion. Chairperson, the COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated the imperative to build equitable, global, and national resilient health systems to achieve universal health coverage, to build prevention, preparedness, and response to pandemics, as well as other health emergencies, and to end epidemics such as tuberculosis, HIV, and malaria, including AMRs, particularly in Africa. Mr. Chair, productive formal employment and recent work for all is essential to the eradication of poverty and reducing inequality. The African Group is concerned that around 60% of the global workforce are employed informally, and more than a quarter are in extreme poverty. In line with the Addis Ababa Action on Financing for Development, it is important to strengthen national and global efforts accompanied by access to quality education, lifelong learning opportunities, full and productive employment opportunities to create conducive conditions for sustainable development, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, and shared prosperity cognizant of the different levels of national development capabilities and capacities. Mr. Chair, action is needed at the national, regional, and international levels to bridge digital divides within and between countries and to fully connect people living in poverty and those in developing countries, of which majority are in Africa. Regrettably, the group reaffirms that education is fundamental for building digital literacy, knowledge and skills. Integrating information and digital technologies into education empowers all to navigate a changing job market, as well as social, cultural, and economic landscapes that are increasingly digital. Mr. Chair, the African Group further emphasizes the need to broaden and strengthen partnerships to ensure supportive international frameworks for trade, market access, taxation, technology, and climate change mitigation, adaptation and resilience to sustain long-term development, and for sufficient, predictable, and well-coordinated financing for development in line with the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, including national budget, ODA, debt relief, and new financing resources, instruments and arrangements, institutions, and the reform of international financial architecture. The Pact of the Future lays the groundwork to place IFA discussion at the UN. We strongly emphasize the importance of transcendent representation of developing countries in international financial institutions, encouraging the boards of the IMF, World Bank, and MDBs to take further positive steps for the African continent to reap benefits in financing for development. In addition, the African Group welcomes the launch of the process of elaborating an international tax convention which builds on an African initiative. Mr. Chair, in concluding, the African Group reaffirms its commitment to poverty eradication. The group believes that creating decent and productive formal employment is essential to reducing poverty. It is also essential for Africa to diversify their economies adapted to the digital era, and for developed countries to open markets for African products. We call on developed countries to fulfill their development commitments and close digital divides, among others. The African Group looks forward to the adoption of a concise, action-oriented political declaration of the second World Summit for Social Development in Doha, November 2025, which should have a social development approach and give momentum toward the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. And in light of the African Union 2063 Development Agenda, we encourage all states to seize the opportunity of the summit to reaffirm our commitments to the Copenhagen Declaration and Program of Action and redouble our efforts for the advancement of social development in the three pillars, namely poverty eradication, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, and social integration. I do thank you, distinguished Chairperson.
I thank the representative of Egypt. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Pauline Irene Nguye, Minister for Social Affairs of Cameroon.
It is an honor and a privilege for me to be taking the floor at this session, the 63rd session of the Commission for Social Development, to discuss Cameroon's views of ensuring inclusive, sustainable social development. Allow me to begin on behalf of the delegation of Cameroon, which I'm leading, to extend to you and the members of the Bureau my warm congratulations on your election to the helm of this session of the CSD. The adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development by the United Nations aimed to breathe new life into the efforts of the member states to ensure an increase in the living conditions of peoples by curbing inequality and poverty. These strategic objectives were encountered major obstacles in recent years. These include the healthcare crisis, which shook the world in 2020 with a direct impact on revenues and household consumptions. There's also persistent armed conflicts throughout the world, which caused fragility of households. There's also been an unprecedented increase in vulnerability and demand for humanitarian aid. This is partially linked to forced displacements of populations. The observable consequences of climate change also caused major damage in regions of my country, with many people affected by flooding and many people forced to flee their homes. At the global level, all of the reports show a poor performance toward the achievement of the SDGs. We can see persistent poverty of populations. We see more vulnerability, more social inequality as well. At the national level, this situation has led our public authorities to address the social realm. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, Cameroon welcomes the priority topic of this session. Indeed, social protection of groups in vulnerable situations is a concern of the government of Cameroon, and it's found in our national development strategy, which incorporates all aspects of sustainable development. On the economic front, we are working together with the IMF in order to achieve positive indicators. For example, we've rolled back inflation, which decreased to some 4%, and it was around 7% in Cameroon. We've also increased our non-oil-related revenues by around 7% in 2024. We're also working to address public financing in the context of a agreement for resilience and sustainability. Turning now to the environmental front, we have a new law on land use adopted in June of 2024. It aims to ensure the inclusiveness of the institutional framework for sustainable development in Cameroon. It also aims to ensure the participation in everyone in forest and other resources. Turning to the social front, major reforms are underway in my country here, too. From a strategic level, preparatory work for the implementation of a national solidarity fund is underway. This is about shoring up the system for social protection with a financing mechanism, sustainable financing mechanism, to successfully curb vulnerability among vulnerable members of the population. We're implementing other measures of social protection through a law we passed in 2024, aiming to prevent risks and curb humanitarian risks as well. We are focusing on specific social groups and on their specific needs. By way of example, we are aiming to address the situation of young people, to ensure the participation of young people in priority strategic acts. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, the Copenhagen Declaration is more relevant today than ever as we look toward the second World Summit on Social Development to be held this year. This is an opportunity for us to spotlight the major achievements made in terms of eradicating poverty and the promotion of a decent life for everyone. Cameroon stands ready to continue working on the plan of action for the plan of action for social development. The speaker's mic has been cut off.
I thank the Minister for Social Affairs of Cameroon, and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Amongi Betty Ongom, Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development of Uganda.
Chair, I would like to congratulate you and the entire membership of the Bureau on your election and pledge my delegation full support. Uganda is pleased to share our experience on strengthening solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion to accelerate delivery of commitments of the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development. It should be our collective concern that the world is going from one year to the next without having substantially resolved its social inclusion agenda, including poverty, universal social security, and inequality. We must act with great urgency to bring about an inclusive, resilient, and transformative agenda that responds to the exacerbated structural inequalities. As a country, Uganda has put in place legal, institutional, and policy frameworks to address structural issues related to social inclusion. Our Constitution, Article 32, provides for affirmative action in favor of marginalized groups. We have established the Equal Opportunities Commission with the mandate of eliminating discrimination and inequalities against any individual or group of persons. to engender our budgets to target resource allocation in social sectors, the Public Finance Management Act provides that all government ministries, departments, and agencies are issued with a certificate of gender equality before their budget is approved. This has enabled national budgets to respond to the principle of social inclusion. The National Social Protection Policy is under implementation with the National Single Registry for Social Protection developed to enable planning and coordination of social protection programs. We have other programs ongoing, for example, projects to spur macroeconomic development interventions for marginalized groups to build their asset base, enabling their access to markets and technology, cheap capital to start and grow their businesses, and reduce poverty. Affirmative action policies where we are promoting equal access to education, employment, and leadership position for marginalized groups, including women, persons with disability, older persons, and youth, all having reserved seats in our parliament. Other programs are Special Assistance Grant for older persons, 80 years and above, implemented since 2010, where we give a monthly stipend of $15 per person. Special grant for persons with disability, targeting groups of persons with disability, and another special grant for older persons, targeting older persons 60 years to 79 years to support them start economic enterprises with $1,500 per group of 10 to 15 members. The development response to displacement project, providing direct income support to the poor and vulnerable within refugee hosting district. A project dubbed NUSAV 3 has been operating, targeting the poor by providing financial and material support to increase community assets and stimulate employment. Under the principle of leaving no one behind, government under the parish development model and generating growth and opportunities for women entrepreneurs are offering affordable capital to marginalized communities at 6% per annum, where they borrowed between $300 to $70,000 US, with reserve quotas for women at 30%, youth at 30%, persons with disability at 10%, and older persons 10%, where they get the money through financial institution. We have free primary and secondary education. We have a program of free skillings in technical schools for teenage mothers. We have free maternal health services for women to support the rural poor. We have also constructed National Specialized Women's Hospital to support specialized treatment for women. We are promoting women's rights to ownership of land, opening their bank accounts, and building their asset base. Honorable Chair, in conclusion, strengthening solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion requires deliberate measures that are embedded in legal and policy matters. Uganda is committed to ensuring that the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development and Program of Action of World Summit for Social Development is achieved through advancing Agenda 1 and 2 of 20.
I thank the Minister of Uganda, and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Camilla Waltersson Grönwall, Minister for Social Services of Sweden.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank the Secretary General for the report on the priority theme of this year's session and state that Sweden support the statement delivered by Poland. Today, multiple crises such as the climate crisis, democratic backsliding, and repeated human rights violations are affecting the lives of millions of people around the world. In recent years, the economic downturn, cost of living crisis, and the energy crisis caused by Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine have affected people all over the world. This year is an important year for social development. it marks 30 years since the adoption of the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development. We are now turning our focus towards the second World Summit on Social Development in Qatar in November. As Sweden's Minister for Social Services, my responsibilities encompass child protection, social inclusion, and the rights for persons with disabilities. These are all areas close to my heart. Today, I would like to highlight several initiatives that exemplify the Swedish commitment to strengthening solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion. Firstly, the importance of a sound and inclusive social protection system. One of my most important tasks is to strengthen the capacity of our social protection system to ensure that those in vulnerable situations receive the support they are entitled to. Therefore, I am glad to share with you that we have adopted the most important social policy reform in Sweden in decades, namely a large reform on the Social Services Act. The new act focuses, for example, on preventive work such as enhanced early intervention. Early intervention should work as a tool to support families and individuals at an earlier stage to prevent social issues from escalating. Secondly, investing in our children and in the rights of the child. To foster early intervention and support, I would like to highlight the importance of parental support. Families might be the most valuable tool we have to prevent placements into alternative care. Therefore, we are investing in parental support measures which should be both accessible and applicable. We are also directing more efforts towards mental health services for young people. Child protection is essential for social inclusion and social development. A child's upbringing can affect their entire adult life and role in society. In November 2024, Sweden, together with Colombia, hosted the first global conference on ending violence against children. This was a first step to increase how violence against children affects not only the individual children, but many aspects of our societies. It was amazing to be in Colombia, to witness the enthusiasm from all participants for this issue and the collective drive to do more. Thirdly, to promote equality and gender equality. Gender equality is at the heart of human rights and a key driver of inclusive growth, social cohesion, and social development. We need to carry on our joint efforts to make more gender equal societies. On the topic of equality, I specifically want to address persons with disabilities. Measures to achieve full participation in society for people with disabilities is of utmost importance. We are working hard in Sweden to ensure an accessible society for all. An important part is our strategy for systematic monitoring of disability policy, which allows us to track development and assess if measures taken contribute to the implementation of the CRPD. These initiatives reflect Sweden's dedication to creating a more inclusive and cohesive society. Finally, I would also like to express our deepest appreciation for the work carried out by civil society organizations in order to promote social inclusion and social development. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the Minister for Social Services of Sweden, and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Clara Marques Mendes, Secretary of State for Social Action and Inclusion of Portugal.
E senhores, é uma honra estar aqui a representar o governo português e quero desde já agradecer à mesa e aos serviços das Nações Unidas a preparação de mais uma sessão da Comissão de Desenvolvimento Social, onde Portugal tem tido uma participação muito ativa. Começo por dizer que Portugal...
Interpretation from Portuguese is unfortunately not available.
Reforçar a solidariedade, a inclusão e a coesão social para melhorar a vida das pessoas e assim cumprir os compromissos assumidos na Declaração de Copenhaga, no Programa de Ação da Cimeira Mundial para o Desenvolvimento Social, bem como na Agenda 2030 e no Pilar Europeu dos Direitos Sociais, são objetivos que Portugal está empenhado em promover e concretizar. Portugal organiza este ano mais uma edição do Fórum Social do Porto, onde todos juntos podem debater assuntos estratégicos. Gostava de partilhar convosco algumas das medidas que em Portugal já implementamos
in order to strengthen inclusion and social cohesion. These measures are aimed at various areas of intervention, namely social responses, health, education, training and employment, housing and culture. Thus, in the social and inclusion area, I emphasize investments in social facilities and the updating of the social benefits paid by Social Security, the increase in the amount of the Solidarity Supplement for older persons, and the change in the rules for granting this benefit, which has allowed us to broaden the universe of beneficiaries. It was also approved the provision of medicines for free to older persons receiving this supplement. In October 2024, an extraordinary supplement was also granted for the lowest pensions, and the government approved a statute for older persons, which provides, among others, increased access to home care and medicine. The informal caregiver statute was also improved, providing for more rights and in simplifying the access process. With regard to children, I would like to emphasize
I've been just informed that interpretation was not coming through for some languages. So if you would like, I would ask you to restart the speech so and interpretation can work.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Senhor Presidente.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the Bureau and the United Nations Secretariat for preparing yet another session of the Commission for Social Development, in which Portugal has played a very active role. I'll start by aligning with the statement delivered by the European Union. Strengthening solidarity, inclusion and social cohesion to improve people's lives and thus fulfill the commitments made in the Copenhagen Declaration and the Programme of Action of the World Summit for Social Development, as well as the 2030 Agenda and the European Pillar of Social Rights, are objectives that Portugal is committed to promoting and achieving. Portugal will organize this year another edition of the Social Forum in Porto, where we will bring together all stakeholders in strategic debates. I would like to share with you some of the measures that we have already implemented in Portugal and others that we are implementing in order to strengthen inclusion and social cohesion. These measures are aimed at various areas of intervention, namely social responses, health, education, training and employment, housing and culture. In social and inclusion area, I emphasize investments in social facilities and the updating of the social benefits paid by Social Security and the change in the rules for granting this benefit, which has allowed us to broaden the universe of beneficiaries. It was also approved the provision of medicines for free to older persons receiving this supplement. In October 2024, an extraordinary supplement was also granted for the lowest pensions, and the government approved a statute for older persons, which provides, among others, increased access to home care and medicines. The informal caregiver statute was also improved, providing for more rights and simplifying the access process. With regard to children, I would like to emphasize the free provision of childcare and the expansion of the existing network, as well as the recently implemented project to enable the system for the promotion and protection of children and young people to intensify deinstitutionalization approaches. In this regard, I would highlight the National Awareness and Information Campaign on Foster Care, which began in November 2024 and which already had very positive results, with many families showing interest to house. Furthermore, the fight against poverty, the integration of homeless people, the inclusion of persons with disabilities, children's rights, and the childhood guarantee are also government priorities. For people with disabilities, I would mention the existence of a subsidized credit scheme for buying houses, quotas for employment in the private and public sectors, as well as measures to guarantee physical and digital accessibility. In the area of health, I would remind you that Portugal is a public, universal, and quality national health service with a non-discriminatory nature, which provides care to those who need it, regardless of their economic situation, nationality, or legal status, including migrants. In May, a health emergency and transformation plan was approved with the aim of putting an end to waiting lists, upgrading emergency services, ensuring that every Portuguese has a family doctor. In the area of education, a priority for Portugal, I would stress that the rate of early school leavers has fallen sharply and the education budget will increase by around 7% by 2025. At the same time, measures with a strong human rights component have been implemented, such as inclusive education, education for citizenship, which includes education for human rights. In the area of vocational training and work, a reassessment of the vocational training system is underway. An agreement was also signed between the government and social partners on wage enhancement and economic growth. These are some of the measures implemented and underway that we are committed to in order to achieve more and better solidarity that show the commitment of Portugal in inclusion and social cohesion. Thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary of State for Social Action and Inclusion of Portugal. I can confirm interpretation has come through this time. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Mercy Dinya, Deputy Minister for Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Chair. Allow me to extend my delegation's heartfelt congratulations to you and the Bureau on your elections. We have full confidence that, under your esteemed leadership, our deliberations will be both constructive and solution-driven as we collectively strive to fulfill the commitments set forth in the Copenhagen Declaration and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Chair, distinguished delegates, when our head of state and government adopted the Copenhagen Declaration in 1995, they emphasized the importance of people-centered development and the urgent need to address fundamental social challenges, including poverty, unemployment, and social marginalization. Yet, nearly 3 decades later, these challenges persist, now exacerbated by global pandemics, conflicts, and the growing impacts of climate change. As we stand just 5 years away from 2030, the reality is stark. The world is not on track to achieving these sustainable development goals. This session's theme, which calls for strengthening solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion, is therefore both timely and imperative. Moreover, this session also serves as an ideal platform to prepare for the upcoming Second World Summit for Social Development in November 2025. Chair, social protection is a principle enshrined in the Constitution of Zimbabwe. Our national philosophy, Nyika inovakwa nevene vayo, a country is built by its citizens, underscores the importance of collective effort, where every citizen plays a role in driving economic and social progress. Through a whole of of government and whole of society approach. Zimbabwe remains committed to inclusive development that leaves no one and no place behind. In addition, our National Development Strategy 1 outlines social development as a critical component of sustainable economic development. Despite challenges that include unilateral coercive measures imposed on the country by some Western countries and climate-induced drought, Zimbabwe has made strides in creating the following social safety nets to cushion vulnerable communities. Key initiatives include, number one, climate-proof agriculture programs and the Presidential Input Scheme, ensuring food security and building resilience against climate shocks. Two, targeted social transfers, which are in kind and cash, assistive technologies for persons with disabilities, alongside the economic empowerment initiatives to promote self-sufficiency and resilience. Chair, distinguished delegates, education remains the cornerstone of Zimbabwe's social development strategy. To this end, we are implementing a heritage-based education 5.0 system designed to harness innovation and industrialization, equipping our youth with the skills necessary for the self-reliance and economic contribution. Furthermore, active labor market interventions such as career guidance and vocational training and job placement programs are being implemented to enhance employability, particularly for marginalized groups. Fair labor practices and anti-discrimination policies further ensure an inclusive and equitable workforce. Chair, distinguished delegates, achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is a shared responsibility that requires collective global action. Meaningful progress will only be possible through strengthened multilateralism and deeper collaboration between governments, civil society, regional alliances, and international partners. Together, we must confront socio-economic inequalities, foster inclusive growth, and ensure equitable access to opportunities for all.
I thank the Deputy Minister for Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare of Zimbabwe. And I now give the floor to Her Excellency Monina Josefina H. Romualdez, Undersecretary for Operations Group, Department of Social Welfare and Development of the Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We congratulate you and your Bureau for your election, and we trust that you will judiciously steer this meeting to a meaningful outcome. The Philippines is pleased to participate in this session, which is an opportunity for us to reinvigorate our commitment to social progress and human development. We look forward to the Second World Summit for Social Development and to build on the vision articulated in the Copenhagen Declaration and Program of Action and the Manila Declaration on the Agenda for Action on Social Development adopted by ESCAP region. The concerns of 1995 remain as relevant today as it was 30 years ago. The challenges we face today, poverty, inequality, climate change, and the lingering impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic demand a renewed and collective effort to uphold the principles of social justice, equity, and human dignity. As part of our national agenda and our commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals, the Philippines continues to align its policies with the goals of eradicating poverty, expanding social protection, and fostering social inclusion. The Philippines has made strides in advancing social development, guided by the principles of the World Summit for Social Development and the 2030 Agenda. Eradicating poverty and promoting livelihood opportunities through the Pantawid Pamilyang Filipino Program, or 4Ps, we have provided conditional cash transfers to millions of low-income families, improving access to education, healthcare, and nutrition. This flagship program has lifted many families out of extreme poverty and empowered communities to break the intergenerational cycle of poverty. We are also implementing livelihood programs such as the Sustainable Livelihood Program, which equips marginalized sectors with the skills and resources to be able to generate income, thereby fostering self-reliance and economic empowerment. Strengthening social protection systems, the Philippines United Healthcare Act ensures that every Filipino has access to essential healthcare services without the fear of financial hardship. This aligns with our policy that health is human right and a cornerstone of social development. Our social security system and government service insurance system provide social protection to workers and retirees, safeguarding them from economic shocks and vulnerabilities. Fostering social inclusion and equity, we remain steadfast in promoting gender equality through our Magna Carta of Women and active participation in the ASEAN Gender Mainstreaming Strategic Framework. Women and girls are integral to nation building, and their empowerment is a critical step toward achieving inclusive development. Programs supporting indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, older persons, and migrants ensure that no one is left behind, embodying our commitment to the principle of equity and development, enhancing climate resilience and environmental sustainability. As one of the most climate vulnerable nations, the Philippines has embedded climate resilience into its social development agenda. Through initiatives like the Risk Resiliency Program and community-based disaster risk reduction efforts, we empower local communities to adapt to and mitigate the impacts of climate change. The road ahead. Mr. Chair, the path to a more equitable, inclusive, and sustainable world is challenging, but it is one we must walk together. The Philippines remains steadfast in its commitment to the principles of social development, and we stand ready to work with the global community. Thank you.
I thank the Undersecretary for Operations Group, Department of Social Welfare and Development of the Philippines. And I now give the floor to His Excellency Carlos Paris, Vice Minister of Social Policies, Ministry of Social Development.
Muy buenas tardes.
Very good afternoon. Chair, on behalf of my delegation, allow me to congratulate you and the members of the Bureau on your election. We wish you very best wishes for successful completion of your work. Firstly, we welcome the choice of the priority theme for this year. These types of fora allow us not only to access good practices, but also allow us to share the progress and measures implemented in each country with the common goal of advancing towards the eradication of poverty and achieving social development. Paraguay is committed to reducing inequality, improving the quality of life of people living in poverty, improving the economic situation of those of working age, improving the health of children and older persons, as well as communities and territories. Chair, it is timely to recall the spirit of the Declaration of Copenhagen of 1995, which aspired to put the human being at the core of development, guaranteeing the full participation of all. Our government is based on the principle of joint responsibility and believes in dynamizing the private sector together with the participation of civil society. It is in this collaboration where we can forge the essence of our social commitment. In this context, coordination of social programs takes on special significance. The President of the Republic has, in this regard, established a new focus for the management of social policy with a reinvigorated social cabinet made up of cross-cutting entities. We have social programs aimed at reducing poverty, and this restructuring allows us to invest in institutions and a strategic program while identifying key priority areas for social development. Our national program for poverty reduction is a guiding instrument for government action. It is compulsory in the public sector and offers a guideline for the private sector. It sets out a series of goals through 2030, and we have a participative, consultative process, including indigenous persons and persons with disabilities. They have shared their points of view, adapting it to the current context in the country. This plan seeks to address both multidimensional poverty as well as income disparities. Chair, Paraguay's commitment to social development is confirmed through our social policies that comprehensively cover fundamental issues such as gender equality, the inclusion of persons with disabilities, and the indigenous population in a number of social protection programs that we have. This approach guarantees that all people are covered and supported in our quest for a more inclusive and just society. Given the importance of social inclusion as a fundamental pillar for the well-being of families and for the well-being of the country, Paraguay has implemented the Zero Hunger program in schools. The aim is to universalize school meals to eradicate hunger at schools, and we are moving to universality and equality as a way of addressing the most vulnerable in our community, from a level of 5% coverage through to a significantly higher level in 2025. Chair, delegates, despite our achievements in Paraguay, we are still facing many challenges. We should have a strategic plan, and therefore we trust that we will make progress together with the international community. The second World Social Summit to take place in Doha in 2025 is an opportunity to move towards global plans to ensure full access to equality and to reducing inequality. We can thus promote inclusive and cohesive societies that are based on equity and equality through solidarity and trust. The summit must lay strong foundations for social development with a view to achieving the points set out in the Copenhagen Declaration. We reaffirm our commitment to social development. We recognize the importance of building more inclusive societies. The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I thank the Vice Minister of Social Policies from the Ministry of Social Development of Paraguay, and I now give the floor to His Excellency Adil Kaliskan, Deputy Minister of Family and Social Services from Turkey.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, we are at the turning point where global problems like economic instability, conflict, climate change, and migration are making inequalities worse and harming social unity. In this situation, Turkey believes that improving social unity should be a key part of global and national policies. To support sustainable development, we take action both within our countries and via international cooperation, especially by helping countries in need. When it comes to official development assistance, Turkey is one of the top countries in the world, both in total aid provided and in the share of aid compared to national income. Dear colleagues, as globalization changes societies, it also put more pressure on families, weakening traditional values and changing the way family life works. Our President, His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdogan, state the preservation of our families, our family structure, and our family values are fundamental for us. Understanding that strong families build strong societies, we have declared 2025 as the Year of Family. These initiatives underscores our commitment to ensuring economic support, solidarity, and protection families' values. In this regard, we have developed high-level policy documents to ensure that families receive the necessary support they need in education, health, employment, and social protection. Turkey has made the great process in social protection, make sure no one is left behind. Our social assistance programs support over 50 target initiatives focusing on women, children, persons with disabilities, elder person, and displaced person, including over 4 million Syrians under temporary protection, conditional cash transfers for improved access to education and healthcare, employment-based assistance programs that promote economic independence. Respected participants, we believe that global change needs global solution. Turkey is committed to promote inclusive and just governance. As we approach the second World Summit for Social Development in Doha, we must work together to combat poverty and inequality, build trust in institutions via transparent governance, foster partnership that promotes social unity and dignity. Turkey is ready to share experiences and work together for all world where everyone has the chance to succeed and family values are protected. The tragedies, conflict zones are reminders that as long as wars persist, stability will be fragile and the human suffering will endure. We urgently call immediate the lasting end of Israel violation against Palestinians so that Palestine can reclaim their right to a future built and on justice and stability. In war-torn countries such as Syria, the path forward must go beyond the country and its people must be given the opportunity to rebuild their lives and their homeland. In this process, it is impressive for the international community to take responsibility and develop sustainable solutions as a duty to our shared human values. Thank you.
I thank the Deputy Minister of Family and Social Services of Turkey, and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Halbibi Tachianova, Deputy Minister of Labor and Social Protection of Population of Turkmenistan.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome all of the delegations and express the appreciation to our colleagues for convening and all of our colleagues from the United Nations for convening the 63rd session of the Commission on Social Development. We welcome the efforts of the international community to strengthen solidarity, social cohesion, and inclusivity in the context of implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In this context, the key event of 2025, without a doubt, will be the World Summit for Social Development, to be held on the 4th to the 6th of November of this year in Doha. This event will lay the ground for consolidating and discussing matters of social protection and poverty eradication. The selection of Turkmenistan as a member of the UN Commission for Social Development for the period 2025 to 2029 reaffirms our country's dedication to addressing issues on the social agenda toward protecting vulnerable strata of the population and toward strengthening international partnership. March of 2024 saw the UN General Assembly adopt something initiated by Turkmenistan. I'm referring to the resolution declaring 2025 the International Year of Peace and Trust. This resolution reflects our dedication to the ideals of global peace and sustainable development. In the context of social development, this principle is reflected in Turkmenistan's national plans and strategies to achieve social protection, equality, and inclusivity. We are actively working to integrate 3 key areas. These are sustainable economic growth, social policy, and environmental protection. That fact is expressed through our National Program for Socioeconomic Development for the period 2022 to 2028, and through our program called Reemergence of a New Era of the Powerful State for 2022 to 2052. In recent years, Turkmenistan, together with the UN, has successfully implemented the program called Enhancing the System of Social Protection through Inclusive Quality Social Services at the Local Level. In 2021, in the context of this initiative, Turkmenistan adopted a law on social services, which was an important step toward ensuring all citizens' rights for social protection. Turkmenistan supports the work of the United Nations Research Institute for Social Development, which substantially contributes to development of inclusive social strategies. The government of our country pays particular attention to ensuring sustainable living standards for the population. Over 70% of our national budget goes toward development of the social realm. This includes education, healthcare, and social services. Every year, salaries increase, as do pensions and social benefits. This is in keeping with the recommendations of the report of the UN Secretary General on social cohesion and inclusivity. And this underscores the importance of investment in social protection and in decent work. We're firmly convinced that social cohesion and inclusivity are key elements of social development. We call for an expansion of international cooperation in terms of ensuring social justice, and we call for strengthening social cohesion in keeping with the recommendations of the Global Report on Social Development of the UN for 2025. In closing, allow me to assure you that Turkmenistan is steadfast in its support for the principles of peace, trust, and solidarity in international affairs. Thank you.
I thank the Deputy Minister of Labor and Social Protection of Population of Turkmenistan, and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Dion Jennings, Acting Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security of Jamaica. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Jamaica is honored to participate in this 63rd session of the Commission on Social Development ahead of the Second World Summit for Social Development. Our participation reflects our continued unwavering commitment to advancing social development through inclusivity, social progress, and robust social protection mechanisms in line with the Copenhagen Declaration and its program of action. Jamaica remains steadfast in our pursuit of the holistic implementation of Agenda 2030 as we advance efforts towards the SDGs and navigate a socio-economic landscape characterized by various complexities. Our government is working assiduously to develop an enabling environment that advances policies and programs that promote poverty eradication, equity, and economic empowerment for all. Jamaica remains committed to reducing poverty and fostering a more equitable society. In alignment with Commitment 2, we launched the National Policy on Poverty and the National Poverty Reduction Program, with the goal of lowering poverty prevalence to below 10% by 2030. Recognizing the importance of targeted interventions, we introduced the National Reduction Leave No One Behind Toolkit in 2024 to empower stakeholders in identifying and supporting at-risk and underrepresented groups. While Jamaica's poverty rate rose from 11% in 2019 to 16.7% in 2021, we're actively working to reverse this trend, knowing that poverty reduction is key to minimizing inequality and expanding social protection for our most vulnerable populations. Jamaica has made remarkable progress, achieving its lowest ever unemployment rate of 3.5% as of October 2024, a significant decline from the highest recorded rate of 16.5% in 1997. This achievement reflects the strength of our economy and the effectiveness of policies aimed at job creation and workforce development. As we celebrate this progress, we recognize the opportunity to further integrate and transition more young people into the workforce, ensuring they benefit from the nation's economic growth. Our commitment to enhancing the formalization of the informal economy remains a key priority as we continue to create pathways for greater economic inclusion and sustainability. We recognize the critical need to strengthen our data and information systems in both social protection and labor. A transformative approach will enable integrated data management and operationalization, ensuring the efficient, inclusive, and equitable delivery of resources. To this, we have embarked on the reforming of our flagship safety net program path to address design gaps, enhance beneficiary selection, and improve operational efficiency in service delivery. At the core of our vision is the establishment of a comprehensive social protection system, the Social Protection and Increased Resilience and Opportunity Project, which will modernize our safety net by upgrading social and labor market information systems, introducing unemployment insurance, enhancing employment services, and building capacity for key stakeholders. These measures are strengthening Jamaica's resilience, particularly for vulnerable groups and those benefiting from unemployment insurance. Jamaica remains committed to supporting our most vulnerable citizens, including persons with disabilities and the elderly. Our $53.5 million investment in the New Limb, New Life program has provided prosthetic devices to 158 individuals, alongside initiatives such as I Am Able and the Disabilities Rights Tribunal to enhance the quality of life for persons with disabilities. The social pension program continues to offer financial assistance to Jamaica citizens aged 75 and older who have no other form of income or benefits. Looking ahead, Jamaica reaffirms the need for stronger partnerships across government, private sector, and civil society to enhance social cohesion and policy development. We continue to advocate for international cooperation, meaningful dialogue, targeted support to address social challenges, build resilience, and drive sustainable development. The evolving local landscape underscores the need to boost productivity by strengthening industry-academic partnerships, fostering national innovation, and incentivizing private sector growth, as we launch a Just Transition project and respond to climate-related challenges. As we engage in these critical discussions, let us affirm.
I thank the Acting Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security of Jamaica, and I now give the floor to His Excellency Ricardo Landero Miranda, Vice Minister for Social Development of Panama.
Thank you. Good afternoon. All protocols observed. To step up progress towards the goals set out in the Programme of Action of Copenhagen, we must connect economic growth and social development. The economic sphere and the social sphere and global solidarity are complementary and interdependent. They cannot exist in isolation, nor can they advance on parallel tracks. In our strategic plan, 2025-2029, adopted by José Raúl Mulino, President of Panama, we have committed to strengthening our productive and competitive capacity of our economy in light of the current demographic trends. 30 years since the Copenhagen Declaration, and as we approach the SDG deadline, we urgently must restart the progress with political will, social dialogue, and a firm commitment to human rights. These three pillars are the basis for strengthening regional integration and transforming opportunities into social development. Allow me to share with you some good practices that the current government of Panama has set in motion in order to promote the participation of all sectors and make progress with governmental transparency. Since July 2024, when President Mulino began his term, we have held 69 press conferences called Ask Mulino. This is a live, direct channel of transparent communications. During the same period, we have had roundtable dialogues with active representation of society across various sectors in order to address a contribution-based social security fund. We've also held public consultations for the terms of reference regarding the environmental component of the comprehensive audit of the Panama copper mining project, together with the judicial mandate. It's worth highlighting that given the scale of this project, we are currently assessing the situation from a social, labour and economic perspective. We're also working on sustainable social management through across ministries and sector, highlighting the creation of welfare for those most deprived communities and also working with indigenous populations. We also need to analyse living conditions in these territories. The Second World Summit on Social Development represents a historic opportunity to reaffirm and revitalise the Copenhagen commitments. This is an opportunity to strengthen the relationship between duty bearers and rights holders, to lay out a global roadmap to a new social contract that is adapted to current challenges. We must prioritise universal social protection and improve the identification of vulnerabilities and mechanisms for addressing these with an intercultural and inclusive approach that leaves no group excluded of well-being and social services. We must have an inclusive economic model where growth drives a reduction in inequality, formalisation of employment, and the development of strategic sectors such as the care economy and the green economy. The summit cannot just merely be about debate. We must generate concrete action with sustained funding and social innovation to translate the commitment of states into investment in human capabilities with standardized, measurable and comparable metrics in order to guarantee effective follow-up. This is the only way. As a country that is committed to human rights and the fundamentals of social justice, equity and sustainability, we believe that the Second World Social Summit represents an invaluable opportunity to move towards true international cooperation. It is crucial for negotiation spaces that are created at this forum address not only existing structural challenges, they should also facilitate the dialogue that is necessary in order to redefine the metrics of global solidarity. The traditional metrics for development, while they are useful, are not sufficient to measure advances in social progress. By way of conclusion, we would urge states to use this summit as a space for negotiation and consensus around the creation of new metrics that will reflect a collective commitment by all global actors so that no one is left behind. I thank you.
I thank the Vice Minister for Social Development of Panama, and I now give the floor to the representative of Switzerland.
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, the Secretary General's report confronts us with an uncomfortable reality. In the face of an ever-increasing number of complex and interconnected crises, progress in social development is slowing drastically. In 2024, 8.6% of the world's population was still living in absolute poverty, 36 million more people than in 2019. At the same time, 65% of the world's population still lives in countries where income inequality has increased in recent years. These inequalities erode confidence and reinforce social exclusion, undermining social cohesion. And without social cohesion, there can be no meaningful development. Indeed, societies marked by weak social cohesion are less resilient to external shocks, exacerbating the negative repercussions on individuals and their well-being. Faced with structural transformations and intensification of global crises, it is more necessary than ever to strengthen our individual and collective social resilience through strong commitments and decisive actions. In this regard, the organization of the Second World Summit for Social Development presents a historic opportunity to update these goals and renew our common commitment to their achievement. I would like to talk in particular about three priorities that have to do with the report of the Secretary General. First, give priority to investing in the development of human capital. Investment in human capital is an essential lever for promoting individual and collective social resilience and for reducing inequalities. Equitable access to quality education enables everyone to flourish. Switzerland promotes education systems and vocational training programs that are inclusive, flexible, and adapted to changes in the labor market. In a rapidly changing world of work, marked by digitalization, the green economy transition, and demographic change, it is essential to ensure that everyone, whatever their age, has access to continuing education and retraining opportunities. Second, put in place universal and comprehensive social protection systems that adapt to changing risks. An effective social protection system based on the principle of solidarity is a fundamental pillar in the fight against poverty and inequality. The informal economy remains a major obstacle, with hundreds of millions of workers still not covered at all. There is therefore an urgent need to promote the transition from the informal to the formal economy through specific incentives. Third, put in place transparent and effective governance for social resilience. In the face of growing inequalities and misinformation that are eroding trust and undermining the social contract that underpins our societies, my country wishes to recall the absolute need to develop systems of governance that are transparent, inclusive, and based on human rights and the rule of law. Citizens and other stakeholders, all other stakeholders, must be able to make an active contribution to shaping the policies and decisions that affect them. Effective governance must also be based on reliable and accessible data. Social dialogue and the search for compromise are part of our country's DNA. Strengthening cooperation with and between the social partners helps to promote fair employment conditions and prevent social tensions. Chair, let us seize the historic opportunity presented by the forthcoming World Social Summit. Renewing the commitments of the Copenhagen Declaration is needed and requires a collective effort and courageous decisions. Now more than ever, we must place social justice at the heart of the international political agenda. Switzerland reiterates its commitment to working alongside member states, international organizations, and civil society to craft a world that is fairer and more inclusive and is based on solidarity. Together we can build a world where social justice is not just an aspiration, but a reality experienced by all. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Switzerland, and I now give the floor to the representative of Chile.
Señor Presidente.
Chair, delegations, on behalf of Chile and the President of our Republic, Gabriel Boric, greetings to all of you. We hope that this 63rd session will serve to advance the goals set out in the agenda this year, especially as we look ahead to the second Social Development Summit. I bring you greetings, but also a message of hope. We give great importance to the topics here. They also reflect the goals of our government. We have made progress in broader and more comprehensive protection systems. This has improved access to health, education, and economic security for millions of people. However, the challenges still persist, limiting vast sectors of populations. These are structural challenges in addition to climate change, the aging population, transformations in the world of work together with migratory flows. The inequalities in our region are not just a matter of income, it's also about territory. In many of our countries, access to opportunities and services vary drastically depending on a geographic location. Urban centres tend to concentrate services, and this affects indigenous communities, Afro-descendant communities, and those in poverty, limiting their opportunities for social mobility and well-being. And so we must rethink the way that we design our social development programs. Social resilience is not just about addressing crises, but also about building societies that can foresee and mitigate structural inequalities. For this, it's fundamental that we adopt an intergenerational approach to care that covers people's needs over the course of their lives and guarantees these services for all those in development. We must give special attention to older persons. The aging of the population is not just a demographic change, it is a structural challenge that affects our pensions, healthcare and care systems. Addressing these challenges means that we must innovate. It's not just about broadening coverage, but designing services that will guarantee that older persons are not just seen as passive recipients of assistance, but key actors in our societies with rights and that make a valuable contribution, and they should not be invisible. Also, persons with disabilities are facing persistent barriers in terms of access to education, employment, and social services. Resilience is only possible if we guarantee universal access and strategies for real inclusion. We wish to highlight the visibility of unpaid care workers. For the most part, and all over the world, these tend to be women. In order to address this challenge, in our country, we are moving towards the implementation of the national system of support, Chile Cuida. And this is a key pillar for our social protection program. In addition to these challenges, we have climate change, which is an amplifier of inequalities. Extreme climatic and weather events have a disproportionate impact on poorer households, indigenous communities, and those of African descent. And so we must address this urgently, but we cannot do so without addressing the structural causes of inequality. In light of this, resilience must be a structural proposal. Resilience gives us the opportunity to transform our society so that they are more equitable, inclusive and sustainable. Building more just societies is a political and ethical decision that requires a commitment from all sectors. Chair, delegations, the Republic of Chile will be a loyal ally of the bodies and instruments that support multilateralism, as reflected at the World Summit on Social Development and in Agenda 2030. It is only in this way that we can support the sustainability of our societies and move towards a new civilization where well-being is for all. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Chile, and I now give the floor to the representative of Qatar.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may the peace and mercy of God be upon you. I have the pleasure to address you today at this session to discuss the program of the Commission for Social Development. The next summit will be held in Qatar this year. This is an important international event which will allow us to implement what we agreed upon 30 years ago. I'm referring to the Copenhagen Declaration and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, too. It is my hope that during this session will be the session will be fruitful for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, we committed to hosting the second World Summit for Social Development. We are in the vanguard in terms of strengthening social development, both at the national and international levels. We've made a commitment to hosting this summit in order to bolster different international and regional efforts for the SDGs. The state of Qatar is working with all regional and international partners to ensure that this conference is a turning point in international efforts and can promote programs for sustainable development. This will be an opportunity to exchange experience and to learn about the major achievements that have been made. All of this was done thanks to the points of reference that we've adopted. I'm referring to the Constitution of our country and our country's plan for sustainable development. In closing, we will spare no effort to ensure that this World Summit for Social Development will be a summit that will achieve progress, yield results, and will be commensurate with the difficulties we face, and which will implement the 3 pillars of social development as well. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Qatar, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Dominican Republic.
Presidentes de la Comisión.
Distinguished Chair and Vice Chairs, the Commission for Social Development, representatives of Member States. It's an honor to address you here on behalf of the government of the Dominican Republic to express our most sincere thanks and acknowledgement. This Commission has played a fundamental role in the eradication of poverty, the reduction of inequality, and the protection of the environment. As the Secretary General has indicated, poverty is the great challenge of our time. In this regard, ACLAC recalls that social cohesion is a goal that is under construction. We must move towards social development, and to do so, we should implement public policies that are more efficient, that go beyond access to education and health. We must also integrate employment and the promotion of decent work as key and core elements of the social protection systems. Economic and social independence and resilience to crises, including those stemming from climate change, and citizens' participation in the formulation of policies are essential elements for strengthening the trust that the population has in its institutions and in those that take decisions. In this framework, the Dominican Republic reaffirms its commitment to stepping up and deepening efforts in the fight to eradicate poverty in all of its forms in a sustainable way. To do so, we have implemented the Superate program. It is a national initiative that has a multidimensional approach to lift people out of poverty and prevent them falling back into it by creating conditions that improve the quality of life of families in the Dominican Republic and that foster community integration. Since 2020, we've been implementing programs aimed at ensuring food security and social protections during the pandemic. Through this initiative, we were able to achieve an average level of coverage of 46% across the country under the framework of a series of programs the Dominican government executed in order to mitigate the impact of the crisis. We thus demonstrated the importance of having social protection systems that are adaptive and agile and can respond to emergencies. Through the incorporation of advanced systems, we have given priority to following up beneficiaries. We have improved administration and strengthened transparency in the management of public affairs, including for those who are most at risk of climate shocks. We have taken on the responsibility of strengthening our ability to respond to natural disasters and economic crises, guaranteeing continuity of monetary transfers and expanding coverage to affected families. Through the emergency bonds, we have covered almost 73% of the country's provinces, restoring economic stability at a time of crisis. One of the fundamental pillars is ensuring equitable access of opportunities for historically excluded populations. We have thus implemented the national policy on care, addressing the need for care in households by promoting the economic empowerment of women and guaranteeing the right to care. The results of these policies are clear. We have reduced vulnerability by 4%, promoting economic self-sufficiency, and we have optimized the focus of resources towards those areas and populations that have most need, and thus promoting social mobility. Thanks to coordinated efforts across a number of state institutions and monetary transfers policies, we have been able to mitigate the crisis by a rate of 6%. Ladies and gentlemen, solidarity and international cooperation are crucial to advancing our common goals. The Dominican Republic reaffirms its commitment to Agenda 2030 and to strengthening innovative strategies through, for example, our full participation in the forthcoming summit so that we can build more just, resilient and equal societies. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Dominican Republic, and I now give the floor to the representative of Canada.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Canada is pleased to share its vision to strengthen solidarity, inclusion, and social cohesion to accelerate the delivery of the goals of the Copenhagen Declaration and the 2030 Agenda. We would like to leverage this unique opportunity afforded to the UN this year for concrete action to help our partner developing countries tackle the challenges they face. Canada supports the objectives set out in the 2030 Agenda and the Copenhagen Declaration, especially in terms of gender equality, health care, and social protection, inter alia.
Progress, persisting inequalities prevent us from fully achieving social development. Strengthening solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion demands a human rights-based approach. We are deeply concerned by the rise of anti-gender and anti-rights movements around the world. We believe that incorporating human rights in our efforts does not take away from social development. Rather, it strengthens policies and programs that contribute to make progress on social development's core goals. Achieving social development also demands that a gender-transformative lens be applied to its initiatives. Through its feminist foreign policy and feminist international assistance policy, Canada is committed to advancing gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls in all their diversity. Canada's feminist international assistance policy has shaped efforts of Canadian and local partners abroad to address poverty, food insecurity, the adverse impacts of climate change, and gender inequalities, which have been key to furthering the 2030 Agenda in a fair and sustainable way. Chair, Canada is committed to social development that prioritizes the well-being of individuals and communities grounded in equity, inclusion, and resilience. This vision is underpinned by policies to reduce poverty, increase economic participation, and ensure that marginalized communities have equitable access to opportunities. Canada's anti-racism strategy, Canada's first action plan on combating hate, and our establishment of the Supporting Black Canadian Communities initiative to grow Black-led, Black-focused, and Black-serving organizations are prime examples of such initiatives. Canada remains committed to promoting inclusivity and eliminating racism and discrimination, embracing diversity, and delivering fairness for every generation. We welcome the adoption of the Second International Decade for People of African Descent, which we co-sponsored. We continue to support this international call for justice, recognition, and development to ensure all people of African descent can have their rights protected and respected, while also having equal access to policies and programs that advance social development. We are also working to advance the inclusion of persons with disabilities. In 2024, we celebrated the 5th anniversary of the Accessible Canada Act, a landmark law aimed at achieving a barrier-free Canada by 2040 through the proactive identification, removal, and prevention of barriers to accessibility. We have also made significant progress with the launch of the Disability Inclusion Action Plan. We promote this solidarity around the world, including by contributing to the UN Global Disability Fund to support increased independent living opportunities for persons with disabilities, while also improving the well-being of paid and unpaid caregivers who provide support to them. Through projects that combine human rights and social development, the fund contributes to ensure persons with a disability remain key contributors in our societies. Further, through its federal 2S LGBTQI+ action plan, Canada is building resilience for 2S LGBTQI+ communities by providing funding to build capacity for organizations that provide vital services to these communities and supporting projects that address discriminatory policies and practices, enhance support for 2S LGBTQI+ people, and challenge harmful norms and attitudes. Monsieur le Président,
President, the strengthening of solidarity and social inclusion and social cohesion starts by the choices that we make in our own communities. Canada will be committed in the run-up to the second World Summit for Social Development, including in the negotiations on the political declaration. We believe this declaration must be clear, concise, and action-oriented. It must reflect the principles of solidarity, inclusion, and equity. The declaration must also reflect the needs of those who are most vulnerable and marginalized, who play a key role in our work to foster social development in effective fashion. The commitment of all stakeholders throughout the process will be necessary to achieve these goals.
I thank the representative of Canada, and I now give the floor to Her Excellency Maria Luisa Ramirez Coronado, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of Guatemala.
Thank you, Chair. I'm honoured to address you today on the occasion of the 63rd session of the Commission for Social Development. I would like to begin by highlighting that for the Republic of Guatemala, social development is and will be a commitment to inclusion and well-being for our population. We are in the midst of a process of restructuring, bringing together efforts to heal deep wounds marked by poverty and inequality. The commitment of our President, Bernardo Arevalo de Leon, is clear. We want a country where children can dream without limits, where our young people can find opportunities without having to seek a future beyond our borders, where each person, regardless of where they happen to have been born or what their origin is, has access to a life of dignity. The commitments that we undertook at the Summit for the Future are fundamental, given the critical period that the populations of the world are going through. They represent the collective will to address the challenges together as we look to the future. We have the conviction that the transformation requires effort and determination. As small as it may seem, every step that we take should move us closer to a more just, inclusive, and sustainable world. These commitments reflect the responsibility that we have on the basis of the actions that stemmed from the first Social Development Summit in Copenhagen. At that time, we came together to recognize the importance of social development and its importance for the well-being of humanity. Since 2015, when we signed on to Agenda 2030 and Sustainable Development, Guatemala has demonstrated its commitment in the fight against poverty and reducing inequality and fostering economic growth in an environment that is compatible with a sustainable environment. The country hopes to build a prosperous and equitable future and to strengthen resilience and promote inclusive and sustainable growth, with paying special attention to the most vulnerable through the implementation of public policies and innovative programs, together also with the active participation of civil society in the private sector and also international cooperation. Guatemala recognizes that equitable and sustainable development for the country requires a guarantee of access to basic services in the rural areas that historically have been most excluded. In this regard, we have driven policies aimed at improving and expanding quality education, ensuring food security, healthcare infrastructure, and connectivity. The aim is to reduce the gaps of inequality and also to strengthen opportunities for the most underprivileged. Priority is in investment in drinking water, sanitation, electricity, and technology. These are fundamental for a life of dignity that can support productive development. Our President has given special importance to participation from communities when it comes to the proposal and execution of projects. These are crucial for sustainable solutions and for cultural ownership. Guatemala reaffirms its commitment to the eradication of poverty, the reduction of inequalities, and to fulfilling the sustainable development goals. In this way, ensuring that no community is left behind as we go through the process of national development. We recognize that our interdependence requires us to act responsibly with solidarity and in an accountable fashion. We need a global context that will value and invest in the potential of our youth. They are the ones that will benefit from a more equitable and sustainable world. And so the government of Guatemala reaffirms the importance of promoting strategies to create decent jobs, to strengthen the local economy, and to ensure access to funding for small-scale producers and entrepreneurs. In this way, promoting inclusive growth that is of benefit to all sectors of society. In the area of the environment, we have implemented action to protect natural resources. The speaker is no longer audible.
I thank the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of Guatemala, and I now give the floor to the representative of Zambia.
I extend my sincere congratulations to you and the members of the Bureau on your election. Zambia aligns itself with the statement of the African Group, the G77 and China, and further acknowledges the Secretary General's report, particularly on the call for strengthened investment in social development globally. Chairperson, this session lays a crucial foundation for the forthcoming World Summit on Social Development, providing an opportunity for member states to explore the prospects ahead. The theme is both relevant and timely, reflecting our shared aspiration to eradicate poverty and ensure that every individual can live with dignity. It underscores the reality that social inclusion, solidarity, and resilience are not abstract ideals, but fundamental pathways to accelerating progress. Chairperson, Zambia reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the principles enshrined in the Copenhagen Declaration and the Programme of Action, which continue to guide our social development efforts. We also reiterate our dedication to the United Nations 2030 Agenda, a universal blueprint for transforming our world. Our national priorities are aligned with these global frameworks, recognizing that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is not only a collective global responsibility, but also vital to the well-being of every Zambian. To this end, Zambia is actively implementing robust initiatives aimed at reducing poverty, which is estimated at 60% of the population, with 48% being extremely poor. This has been done through economic diversification, infrastructure development, and social protection programs. Our social safety nets have been expanded, and we are investing in agriculture modernization to enhance food and nutrition security for all. Government remains committed to fostering full and productive employment, particularly for our youth, who make up 37% of our population. We are prioritizing job creation by investing in key sectors such as agriculture, renewable energy, and technology. Additionally, we are strengthening vocational training, entrepreneurship, and skills to ensure that Zambians will thrive in a rapidly evolving global economy. Zambia has also made considerable progress in advancing gender equality by ensuring that women have equal access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities, given that 634 of every 1,000 female-headed households are poor, compared to 588 of every 1,000 male-headed households. We have also adopted policies that promote the rights of persons with disabilities, older persons, and children, emphasizing their full participation in all spheres of life. Further, in recognition of the key role of digital platforms in improving service provision and increasing productivity, Zambia has been investing in digital solutions to accelerate the achievement of social development goals. In response to the challenges posed by climate change, Zambia is promoting sustainable agriculture practices, enhancing disaster preparedness, and ensuring that vulnerable communities have access to the necessary resources to adapt to environmental challenges. Despite these efforts, Zambia continues to face significant socioeconomic challenges. Zambia faces high levels of youth unemployment at 18.7% as at 2023, with 21.3% being girls and 17.2% for boys. Though the education system is improving, many young people are unemployed or underemployed. In addition, a large proportion of the rural population still lacks adequate access to clean water, sanitation, education, and healthcare, while gender-based violence and child marriage persist as pressing concerns. Further, despite government's commitment to embracing digitalization, the agenda has been slowed down to widespread digital illiteracy. Chairperson, Zambia recognizes that the challenges we face are complex and interconnected, necessitating enhanced collaborative efforts. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Zambia, and I now give the floor to the representative of Spain.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Friends, it is an honor for me, as the representative of the Institute for the Elderly and Social Services of the Government of Spain, to participate in this general debate. I will try in this debate to set out the policies that the Spanish government has rolled out in recent years in support of older persons. First of all, I wish to highlight that the International Plan of Action on Aging of the United Nations is named after the capital of my country, Madrid. And so I will refer here to the report of the Secretary General entitled Modalities for the Fifth Review and Appraisal of the MIPAA 2002. As indicated in this report, in the European region, within the UN, there is a regional implementation strategy. This was approved at the UNECE Ministerial Conference on Aging held in Berlin in 2002, following the Second World Assembly on Aging in Madrid. And 20 years following its adoption, the member states of the UNECE at the Ministerial Conference on Aging approved the Rome Declaration in 2022, where we emphasized the need to update or adapt the regional implementation strategy and the Madrid Plan of Action itself. So the Permanent Working Group on Aging agreed on the creation of a task force, the aim being to develop a common strategy for the 56 member states of the European region in order to pursue this adaptation or update of the RIS. Spain, through our Institute for the Elderly and Social Services, is part of this task force and has already gotten down to work. We have formed a committee of experts, and it is led by IMSASO, in which the autonomous communities, the regions of Spain, are represented. And according to our constitution, when it comes to matters of social services, this all falls under their jurisdiction. Together with other ministerial departments of central government, as well as representatives of older persons' organizations and the academic world, this group or committee of experts will discuss the current challenges that older persons are facing today: health crises, natural and humanitarian disasters, the digital divide, and so on. As I indicated initially, Spain is fully committed to this work. And I'm also pleased to announce that as a member of the Bureau of the UNECE Permanent Working Group on Aging, Madrid will host on the 8th and 9th of May the regular annual meeting of this group at the headquarters of the Institute of the Elderly and Social Services. I want to conclude by raising the European regional perspective to the global approach of the United Nations. First of all, talking about the World Summit on Social Development that will take place in November in Qatar. Spain, together with UNDESA, has organized a side event to this session of the Commissioners for Social Development, where we will discuss care for the elderly. This is one of the clearest expressions of social development rights in our increasingly aged societies, especially long-term care and the promotion of good treatment of the elderly in friendly environments. We believe it is fundamental for older persons to be given their own space at this summit by all governments of UN states attending this summit. I also wanted to mention the Open Working Group on Aging of the United Nations, where we also participated in May 2024. As you know, a resolution has been adopted according to which we are to guarantee full enjoyment of rights by older persons. And amongst other means, this could take the form of a binding international legal instrument. And I would like to express the support of the government of Spain for this endeavour. Thank you very much for your attention.
I thank the representative of Spain, and then I give the floor to the representative of Saudi Arabia.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية نهنئ المجلس
May the peace and blessings of God be upon you. First, I would like to thank everyone for convening this meeting. Saudi Arabia shall spare no effort to implement the plan and program of action proposed in the previous sessions of the Commission for Social Development and to transform them into tangible results. In this context, we were part of the development and the implementation of the plan of action for last session. We see that the plan of action and the program for this session are an opportunity to reaffirm our common principles, to strengthen our common work, to confront the social challenges whose complexity and effects are ever increasing. We also need to invest in opportunities for the future to ensure a long-term action in the various categories and for various population groups. We need to intensify international efforts to achieve innovative solutions to the challenges that are caused by the changes at hand. Saudi Arabia, for example, has adopted the vision for 2030 for a strong future, which is based on a dynamic society and a global transformation plan that responds to current social and economic challenges. We've also committed to strengthening social and economic development by strengthening family ties, by containing a sustainable mode of life, and by working toward effective social systems and healthcare systems. We hope that our plan for 2030 will have an accelerating effect for the SDGs. We've collaborated with the UN, with the World Bank, with UNICEF and others to draw on the best practices at the international level in terms of social protection and security and social cohesion, and we've worked toward the eradication of poverty. In the context of this meeting, the Kingdom has made important achievements in terms of strengthening the role of young people in society. We've also launched a strategy for the development of youth up until 2030. This is a plan of action to bolster the role of young people and to ensure their participation in society. A number of initiatives, the number of those participating in these initiatives exceeded 900,000. My ministry has seen the participation of more than 10,000 young men and women from various social strata. In the context of the Maghreb Plan of Action and the Secretary General's plan, we've taken clear, tangible action for, referring to the Madrid Plan of Action. In this context, we've taken various steps. We've ensured that older persons are given their rights in the context of a global collaborative approach. And we've ensured that all stakeholders can coordinate their actions. We also announced a plan for older persons to prioritize them when they go to receive various social services. At the international level, we have, at the national level rather, we've carried out a plan to protect families. We've also adopted a transformative plan for social protection, boosting operational capacity to strengthen social protection. And we've also strengthened our system of data management for social protection programs. We've also worked with our international partners to develop a tool to evaluate disabilities, which assesses the situation of persons with disabilities in precise fashion and allows them to receive the support that is appropriate. In the context of our efforts to achieve the 2030 Agenda, we attach great importance to women's empowerment as among our national priorities. Indeed, the participation of women in active society is something very important for us. In the context of our vision, Vision 2030, we aim to empower youth and women and strengthen the role of the family, ensure intolerance, and build a bridge with the entire world. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Saudi Arabia, and I now give the floor to the representative of Germany.
Thank you. Chair, distinguished delegates, Germany aligns itself with the statement delivered by the European Union and its member states, as well as with the statement by the UN LGBTI core group. Sustainable development aims to secure a life and dignity for current and future generations of all scales and within the planetary boundaries. Hence, we need to further intensify and accelerate our efforts for just transition. We therefore support a new social contract that relies on all the cultural and societal diversity existing in the world. And we can only achieve sustainable development if all disadvantaged and vulnerable social groups are included and protected against crisis. Effective social protection systems, including effective social protection floors, are key to ensure no one is left behind. Women, LGBTIQ+ persons, older people, children and youth, as well as persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and many more minority groups have unique perspectives and challenges that have to be included to accelerate global progress. All our efforts towards sustainable development must take this into account while recognizing that social inclusion underpinned by universal social protection is a key enabler of progress for all. Moreover, we strongly urge the inclusion of human rights for people of all genders in the upcoming World Summit for Social Development. Human rights and social rights are inextricably linked. Both are the foundation for strong, resilient communities that can withstand global challenges. As national governments, we hold a responsibility to advance social cohesion and strengthen social inclusion to accelerate global development outcomes. The shared goals of eradicating poverty, reducing inequality in all the dimensions, and addressing their root causes are the guiding principles for our political decision-making. The CSocD builds the bridge between the Summit of the Future, the World Social Summit, and the Sustainable Development Goals. And it is our common challenge to make sure that we are all well positioned for our ambitious goals, especially in this year's shortened session of the Commission. The Pact for the Future, as our shared roadmap, highlights the importance of intergenerational fairness, solidarity, and partnerships. For this, I will now hand over to our German youth delegates, Alina and Hannah, who will deliver their speech on their own behalf.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, dear fellow youth delegates, as we gather here at the Commission for Social Development, we do so under a priority theme that underscores the importance of social cohesion. But what does this truly mean in today's world? At a time when we witness a global rise in authoritarianism, the need for inclusive and resilient societies has never been greater. Especially for young people, however, this often means facing an uncertain future, where their voices are overlooked in shaping the solutions to global challenges. If we are to foster genuine social cohesion, we must ask ourselves, how can we ensure that young people feel heard, valued, and recognized as full members of their community? Too often, blame is misplaced. Even within these halls, we see narratives that divide rather than unite. Trans people are not responsible for rising gas prices. Young people are not lazy for demanding fair working conditions. And immigrants are not taking away jobs. True social cohesion can only be achieved when we move beyond division and work together, guided by the principles of intersectionality.
This year marks the 10th anniversary of the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda, a milestone that highlights the vital role young people play in building peace and strengthening societies. The implementation of this agenda, along with its 5 pillars, participation, protection, prevention, partnership, and disengagement and reintegration, are not just a matter of peace building, they lay the foundation for social cohesion. It is essential, especially for young women and girls in all their diversity, for young boys, for LGBTQI+ persons, for those living with a disability, for older persons, for future generations, for the mother fleeing conflict with her children, and for the single father striving for a secure future for his daughters. Social cohesion is only possible when all members of society are meaningfully engaged in decision-making, transparently, equitably, and with genuine commitment. In these challenging times, we must bring young change makers at the forefront of social development, ensuring that their voices, solutions, and initiatives are not just acknowledged, but actively integrated into global policymaking.
I thank the representatives of Germany, and I now give the floor to the representative of China.
Chair, China aligns itself with a statement by Iraq on behalf of G77 and China. The world today is undergoing transformation and turmoil, as well as combined impacts of intersecting challenges, all of which are severely impacting and challenging the global social development. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the UN and the 30th anniversary of the World Summit for Social Development. In November, the World Social Summit will also be held. The international community should take this opportunity to reaffirm its commitment, work in solidarity, build consensus, and increase investment to revitalize global social development. First, we must prioritize development. Development is the key to solving all problems. We must prioritize development on the international agenda and accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. We should firmly place human development as the starting point and end goal of social development by focusing on the 3 main objectives of poverty reduction, decent employment, and social inclusion. We must improve the basic public service system, try everything to expand employment, and actively address population aging. We should also fully leverage emerging technologies like AI to empower social development in smarter ways. Ensuring and improving people's livelihoods through development is a major mission of Chinese modernization. Over the past 40+ years of reform and opening up, China has successfully eradicated absolute poverty and built the world's largest systems in education, healthcare, and social security, while promoting high-quality economic growth. It is also working tirelessly to improve people's well-being. Guided by the concept of a community with a shared future for mankind, China is supporting the social progress of other developing countries through the Belt and Road Initiative and the Global Development Initiative. China has also initiated the establishment of the Group of Friends for International Cooperation on AI Capacity Building, aiming to actively promote global AI governance and bridge the digital divide. Second, we must stay committed to putting people first. We should pursue people-centered development to promote balanced distribution of resources and realize equal opportunities for development. We should strengthen the social safety net, improve the equity and accessibility of public services, and ensure that groups such as the elderly, disabled, and youth can share the benefits of social development. We should also continuously enhance the fairness and effectiveness and synergy of development, increase social cohesion, and uphold social justice and equity. Chinese modernization is about common prosperity for all its people. We pursue development that is for the people and by the people so that its fruits are shared among the people. We are committed to ensuring child care, elderly care, and social assistance. We also work actively to address population aging, earnestly implement the CRPD, and fully implement the World Programme of Action for Youth. Our goal is to ensure that the benefits of development are more widely and fairly shared by the people so that no one is left behind in the process of modernization. Third, we must uphold multilateralism. Global social development depends on the solidarity and cooperation of countries around the world. We must support the UN in playing a central coordinating role in this process and support the CSD in serving as the main channel. We should increase financial and technical support for the social development efforts of developing countries and help them accelerate implementation of SDGs related to social development so as to promote collective progress for humanity. China believes that the upcoming World Social Summit in November should follow a people-centered development philosophy, stay true to its original purpose, and firmly anchor itself in the three major goals established at the first summit. It should keep evolving to actively address the opportunities and challenges brought by emerging technologies to social development. China will actively participate in the preparation of the summit and work with all parties to ensure that the summit, in line with the Pact for the Future, achieves ambitious outcomes and injects new momentum into the global social development. Thank you.
I thank the representative of China, and then I give the floor to the representative of Luxembourg.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Luxembourg aligns itself with the statements of the European Union and the statement of the LGBTI core group. Allow me to add several remarks in our national capacity. 2025 is set to be significant for several reasons. We are approaching the deadline for the 2030 agenda, which is only 5 years away. We're also preparing for essential high-level meetings. These include the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development in Seville and the World Social Summit in Doha. This year will also mark the 30th year anniversary of the Copenhagen Declaration and its program of action. We are also preparing to implement the Pact for the Future. This context creates a favorable opportunity to boost multilateral cooperation for social development. To achieve these sustainable development goals, we need to invest in social development. The priority theme of this year offers an invaluable opportunity to explore the synergies between social and sustainable development by emphasizing solidarity, inclusion, and social cohesion. The COVID-19 pandemic, geopolitical tensions, intensifying armed conflicts, and climate change have hampered progress toward development. They have deepened already existing inequalities. Of course, initiatives seeking to eradicate poverty have lifted 1 billion people out of extreme poverty during the 3 decades that preceded the pandemic. Nonetheless, we have observed some troubling reversals in recent years. The report of the Secretary General underscores the beneficial amplifying effect that social inclusion, social justice can have, and solidarity can have on social development. He highlights the fact that social cohesion is an essential driver of social development. One key pillar of social cohesion is inclusion. It is up to governments to ensure that policies, measures, and procedures that they put into effect guarantee equal opportunity for everyone. Social inclusion requires an approach that is gender sensitive and sensitive to children too. It means responding to persons living with disabilities as well. The participation of citizens and broad consultation processes that hear the voices of the most vulnerable are also crucial, not only to respond to genuine social needs, but also to improve the effectiveness of measures and to strengthen trust among authorities, between authorities, and to foster social cohesion. It's clear that building social cohesion and equitable societies requires concrete investments in social protection and basic social services. That includes health, education, drinking water, sanitation, civil status, and decent jobs. Hence, the imperative of reaffirming the commitments undertaken in 1995 through the Copenhagen Declaration and its program of action, and hence the need to increase social investments. To achieve our common goals, multilateralism, solidarity, and trust among countries remain essential tools. The international solidarity of Luxembourg is demonstrated inter alia in the fact that we earmark 1% of our gross national income for official development aid. We place particular emphasis here on the least developed countries and on the most vulnerable populations. Social development is given a central place in the strategy of cooperation for Luxembourg, which seeks to improve access to basic quality social services and strengthen socioeconomic integration of women and young people. Chair, in closing, we would like to echo the call of the Secretary General to strengthen our international cooperation for social development. Luxembourg is committed to supporting a multilateral system grounded in solidarity, which guarantees inclusive social development for everyone while leaving no one behind. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Luxembourg and then I give the floor to the representative of Belarus.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, over the last 10 years, Belarus was able to achieve significant success in strengthening social guarantees. According to the report of the UN Development Program, the Human Development Index in Belarus is 0.808, which is in keeping with a high standard. State spending on the social realm consistently exceeds 12% of our GDP, and our unemployment level is one of the lowest in the region. That level is 3.7. Social security is a key area of Belarus's national policy. This is borne out by our national security concept. That concept defines it as the protection of individuals, the state, and the society from social threats, ensuring the preservation of life, health, well-being of citizens, as well as strengthening the moral values of our people. Belarus has consistently demonstrated a high level of social protection for its population. We've crafted effective institutions for social support. We've optimized our economic system, and we have achieved a high level of human development. Our country was able to achieve the Millennium Development Goals early in terms of eradicating poverty. And today, we are continuing to roll out major initiatives seeking to slash poverty and lift the quality of life of the population. One key basis for social cohesion is support for the family. Belarus provides families with children a broad gamut of social guarantees, namely free health care during pregnancy and childbirth, 3 years of parental leave, comprehensive system of state subsidies, and a program of family subsidies. In 2024, over 150,000 families received support from the family subsidy program. We are attaching great importance toward ensuring that young people have a positive impact about marriage, and we are also promoting responsible parenting and ensuring the equal participation of both parents in child rearing. Chair, today sustainable economic growth is impossible without equitable international cooperation, but we're seeing an increase in global challenges, geopolitical stability, the use of economic sanctions, and mounting inequality among states. We are convinced that the world order should be based on the principles of inclusion, cooperation on equal footing, and mutual respect. We urge the international community to set aside discriminatory measures which undermine global social stability, food security, and sustainable development. The genuine path towards strengthening social cohesion and global justice lies with setting aside sanctions policies, ramping up cooperation, transferring technology and sharing knowledge for the purposes of development. Belarus stands ready to engage in mutually beneficial partnerships, and we are committed to further strengthening solidarity among countries and social cohesion. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Belarus and now give the floor to the representative of Japan.
Mr. Chair, I would like to thank you, the Bureau members, and the Secretariat for organizing this session. 30 years ago, the Copenhagen Declaration and Program of Action was adopted at the World Summit for Social Development. These important documents contained the determination of the international community to take action toward poverty eradication, full and productive employment, and social inclusion. At this summit, Japan affirmed its commitment to actively contribute to the implementation of outcome document. However, 30 years later, the international community continues to face significant challenges. Against this backdrop, Japan welcomes the adoption of the Pact for the Future last year, which helps build momentum towards progress in global sustainable development and the 2030 agenda. It is also timely that this year's Commission for Social Development is held under the priority theme of strengthening solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion to accelerate the implementation of commitments toward these goals, as well as towards the SDGs. Furthermore, the upcoming Second World Summit for Social Development can serve to further our endeavor to realize a world where no one is left behind. Japan appreciates the initiative of Qatar and will actively contribute to the achieving action-oriented outcomes under the able leadership of the co-facilitators, Belgium and Morocco. The summit will be an opportunity for us not only to further strengthen international cooperation in the fields such as health, education, or disaster risk reduction, but also to deepen our consideration of the roles of artificial intelligence in social development and how to respond to the challenges of aging populations. Mr. Chair, to realize a world where no one is left behind, Japan believes the empowerment of individuals, including women, children, and youth, by upholding human dignity, the core principle of human security, should be at the heart of the global efforts. No single country can tackle complex global crises alone. International cooperation is indispensable. On this milestone year, Japan renews its commitment to advance social development through the lens of human dignity, adhering the key principle of the SDGs, leaving no one behind. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Japan, and I now give the floor to the representative of Austria.
Thank you, Chair. It's a great honor and pleasure to address you at the 63rd session of the CSocD. Austria fully supports the statement delivered by Poland on behalf of the EU. The present global uncertainties and challenges require a strong international community and multilateral cooperation. Austria supports a world guided by solidarity, social inclusion, and social cohesion. We firmly stand behind humanistic values and the respect for human dignity. We share a commitment to work towards well-being not for a few, but for all, thereby ending poverty and social exclusion globally. The SDGs are the key tool to keep track of our advancements. However, we are lagging behind in reaching them by 2030. Well-functioning and inclusive labor markets are essential for sustainable development and future-fit societies. Support of underrepresented groups in the workforce is an important investment. The climate crisis is also a socio-economic crisis that is felt both within and between countries. Thus, innovative social policies are required to enable social inclusion of the most affected groups. Austria worked on linking social health issues with climate policies to mitigate the effects of the climate crisis on the most vulnerable. To combat poverty effectively, we must start as early as possible. A study by the OECD confirmed that investing in our children is also economically highly efficient. Thus, Austria has recently focused on reducing child poverty. We ensured yearly automatic inflation adjustments of social and family benefits to limit the social consequences of recent price increases. Last July, Austria presented its second voluntary national review on the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, which shows the results of these ambitions. We have especially made progress on SDG 1 and can show positive trends for SDGs 5, 7, and 9. The issues linked to this year's main theme are also pertinent for the upcoming World Social Summit. This summit will offer favorable opportunities for further progress. Austria calls for integrating the ILO governing body's tripartite key messages in the summit preparations, which focus on poverty eradication, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, as well as social inclusion. Let me now highlight recent developments in Austria in relation to social groups in vulnerable situations. Regarding persons with disabilities, Austria is currently implementing the second National Action Plan on Disability to put the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities into practice. The recommendations made by CRPD to Austria will continue to be of utmost importance for our disability policy. Let me continue with youth. Guided by the European Youth Goals and the SDGs, we developed the Austrian Youth Strategy. Through innovative approaches, the voices of young people are heard and actively integrated into the policy-making process. We focus on making education and employment accessible to all young people. The compulsory education and training scheme and the education and training until 18 program are particularly important in this regard. Furthermore, we implement measures to ease the transition from school to work, such as youth coaching or skilled workers grants in important areas like STEM, health and social services. As far as older persons are concerned, it is essential to create inclusive and age-friendly societies that uphold autonomy, participation and dignity at every stage of life. At national level, Austria is determined to create age-appropriate working conditions by preventing health-induced unemployment, invalidity and early retirement. Austria has actively contributed to international efforts through its participation in the open-ended Working Group on Aging and the UNECE's Standing Working Group on Aging. We call on member states to support the establishment of a fit-for-purpose forum within the UN system to build on prior achievements, foster new commitments, and discuss the possibility of a legally binding instrument. Finally, let me remind us that any of us can become chronically ill, lose our job, or have an accident, and then rely on a strong social welfare state to get us back on our feet. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Austria and now give the floor to the representative of Brazil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My delegation associates itself with this statements by the G77 in China and the LGBT core group. As we prepare for the Second World Social Summit in Doha, Brazil reiterates that it is only through cooperation that the international community will address the challenges of comprehensive social development and of social inclusion and cohesion. In the past 30 years, over 1 billion people have been lifted out of extreme poverty. However, as we know, the COVID-19 pandemic and the following economic crisis have reversed many gains. We must now focus on accelerating progress towards the commitments of the 2030 Agenda and the agreements reached in Copenhagen. Brazil is doing its part. At the G20 summit in Rio, Brazil launched the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. It is designed to mobilize resources for evidence-based and tailored policies that address each country's unique realities. Through the Alliance's policy basket, states, international organizations, and multilateral development banks can work together to achieve tangible results in areas such as access to basic services, nutrition, and social protection. Brazil and the state of Qatar have reached an agreement to hold the first summit against hunger and poverty in Doha, back-to-back with the World Summit on Social Development. This double summit will raise the stakes on the importance of revamping international cooperation to address the causes of poverty. Also at the G20 summit, Brazil led a global initiative proposing a 2% wealth tax to finance climate action and poverty reduction. Earlier in 2023, in Brazil, Congress approved a major tax reform. We replaced multiple consumption taxes with a dual VAT system. Essential goods were exempted from taxation, and a selective tax was imposed on harmful products. Investing in inclusive social protection is a powerful tool for reducing inequalities. In 2023, we launched the PEDMEIA program, a financial educational incentive for public high school students who will receive a monthly payment upon providing proof of attendance. We also launched a similar program aimed at teachers in training to encourage teachers to join public education. Last December, Congress approved Brazil's national care policy, which established social co-responsibility between the state, families, the private sector, and civil society for the right to care. The new legislation will integrate policies in the areas of health, social assistance, labor, education, and human rights, with a view to reconciling paid work with care needs and alleviating the disproportionate burden on women and girls. Creating quality jobs and promoting decent work for all is essential for social inclusion. Brazil has reinstated its policy of minimum wage real growth, which seeks to protect workers' rights and improve living standards. Brazil is proud of its unified health system, which provides free universal health coverage to all residents of the country, including migrants and refugees. We're also proud of our unified social assistance system, a vital system for the delivery of social protection and services for vulnerable populations. Digital technology is an ally in expanding access to public services. Yet, we are aware of the perils arising from its misuse, particularly in the spread of disinformation. Brazil is firmly committed to ensuring a healthy data and information environment. The initiatives outlined today reflect Brazil's vision for a more just global order. As we prepare for Doha, let us reaffirm our collective goal of achieving a more solidary world, of building bridges instead of walls, of deepening integration instead of aggravating separation. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Brazil, and I now give the floor to the representative of Indonesia.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the state of global social development is far from well. Over 2 billion people still have no access to safe drinking water. Over 2.3 billion people globally are facing food insecurity, and over 4.5 billion people face lack of access to health care. These data speaks beyond numbers. This number represents individuals who are facing hardship and danger every day. With 5 years left to 2030, it is alarming global reality. We must put extra work to ensure social development to all. Mr. Chair, under current circumstances, expectations are high. The United Nations can be at the forefront in galvanizing much-needed support for developing countries. In this regard, I wish to emphasize 3 pertinent points. First, we must rally strong political commitments at all levels. The fight for social development for all is a collective fight. Each country in their capacities must give the highest political commitment to secure social development for its people. Such political willingness must further translate commitments into actions and bring concrete benefits for the people. For Indonesia, one of the examples of our commitments is reflected through the free nutritious meals program by the President of Indonesia, being rolled out through schools and reaching 733,000 students throughout the country, aiming to significantly reduce the stunting rate in Indonesia. Second, we need a more effective United Nations, one that is better fit for purpose in enabling progress on global social development. We must push for innovation and transformation of the United Nations based on honest and deep evaluation of its success and lesson learned. With the limited time remaining towards 2030, the international community is now at the crossroad between success or failure. We can no longer operate with business as usual, and we cannot expect different results for doing the same efforts. The UN must ensure its programs are agile and precise in targeting support to address the specific needs of countries. Hence, the UN program must be tailored to the actual needs of the countries concerned. Indonesia therefore welcomed the vision of the UN expressed by the Secretary General for the UN to be a force of construction. In line with this, Indonesia welcomes the adoption of the Pact of the Future, in which lays down the foundation for the reform of the UN in ensuring social development for all. We look forward to its effective and full implementation. Finally, we must use the momentum of the Second World Summit for Social Development to mainstream social development in all sectors. Indonesia welcomes the upcoming summit as an opportunity for countries to amplify the importance of social development in all sectors of people's life, while at the same time identify ways and means to address challenges on global social development. We must start paving the path to the summit by strengthening nexus between social development and other agendas, such as financing for development, climate change, disaster risk reduction, health, education, food, and water. We must not waste any opportunities ahead. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Indonesia, and I now give the floor to the representative of Egypt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My delegation aligns itself with the statement of the 77 and China and the African group. We congratulate the Bureau for this session of the Commission for Social Development. The Copenhagen Declaration was a pioneer declaration in establishing the pillars of the regional and international efforts to achieve social development through eradicating poverty, decent work for all, and social inclusion. This declaration is a blueprint for the international community to achieve the objectives of social development. It's still a modern and vision that is in line with the current status of the world. The goals of 2030 reaffirm the Copenhagen Declaration, and eradicating poverty remains the biggest challenge, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals. The successive international crises exercise pressure on the economies of developing countries, specifically hindering the achievement of the social development due to limited resources. The repercussions of the COVID-19, in parallel with huge challenges on the geopolitical tensions and armed conflicts in the world, notably the war waged by Israel against the unarmed civilians in Gaza for over a year, destroying completely the civilian infrastructure, including health, education, and livelihood facilities, threatening future generations of Palestinians, and the backslide of the horizon to achieve social development. Mr. Chair, the Social Development Agenda is one of the main pillars of the work of the Egyptian state. We have a holistic vision in order to achieve the decent life and social development to our society, improving its resilience in the face of crises and the repercussions of the international changing economy. Egypt focuses on the vulnerable groups, mainly women, people with disabilities, rural areas, and people with limited income. Our policies for social protection, we aim for them to be comprehensive, and we want to achieve food security, education for all, including technical training, building skills, in order to align our education and the needs of the labor market. Our national effort is not limited to the government. We also depend on our civil components. They play a pivotal role and implement a number of very important projects. Our policies and relevant programs are reviewed periodically in order to include the beneficiaries and the targeted groups and modernize those systematically based on very accurate data. Our social protection nets provided by the government, inter alia, are through cash transfers, Takaful and Karama, or Takaful and Dignity, a program called Dignified Life, and a program for the families. And recently we have approved the law of social security in our parliament in order to institutionalize this right. In order to develop the families, we launched our national program for solidarity called Mawada to help the young couples with using digital tools. In conclusion, Egypt looks forward to the second World Social Summit to represent an opportunity to evaluate again the tools of the international community and its commitment to achieve the Copenhagen Declaration and its related program of action. Thank you, Chair.
I thank the representative of Egypt and I now give the floor to the representative of Yemen.
Thank you, Chair. My delegation aligns itself with the statement of Iraq on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. Mr. Chair, the Copenhagen Declaration of 1995 affirmed that the achievement of social development requires tackling the root causes of poverty and to guarantee equal economic opportunities, promotion of basic human rights for all. Despite a certain progress in some fields, the world is still away from the achievement of the ambitious goals of the Agenda 2030, especially in the LDCs, including the Yemen. Yemen faces a multifaceted crisis due to the coup by the terrorist Houthi militias against the state. They have exercised this coup against the aspirations of the Yemeni people and the national consensus, spiraling into a long-term conflict and leading to one of the worst humanitarian crises. Within the framework of the efforts of our government to establish peace, end the conflict, and achieve the economic development and social development, we welcome all efforts, initiatives, regionally, internationally, and at the level of the United Nations to end the war. Despite our flexibility in order to achieve lasting and comprehensive peace, based on the politically agreed parameters, especially the Security Council Resolution 2216. The Houthi militias persist in rejecting all initiatives. This conflict has led to a catastrophic humanitarian, economic, and social situation. The Houthi militias escalate military and they target the oil infrastructure, the ports that exacerbates the crisis, and targets the navigation in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and that threatens international peace and security. In the face of all these challenges, our government do its utmost in order to protect our institutions, and we took a number of measures in order to reform our national economy and to improve our economic and financial situation, including creating a conducive environment in order to promote the role played by the private sector and to have the private sector participate in our economic development and to diversify our economy and create opportunities for work, to reduce poverty and unemployment, and to support micro and medium enterprise, including those run by women and youth in rural areas, to support livelihoods with the help of friendly countries and international organizations. Mr. Chair, the Yemeni government looks forward to the Second World Social Summit to be held in Doha at the end of this year. It is going to be an important opportunity to reaffirm the international consensus on the importance of an equitable access to basic services and to economic opportunities, and to invest in the human capital in order to eradicate poverty and achieve sustainable development. This summit would be the opportunity to consolidate tangible commitment and to focus on the role of the family being the main building block of the society. This will support the social cohesion and contribute to the implementation of the Copenhagen Declaration and the 2030 Agenda. In this regard, my country reiterates its commitment to redouble efforts in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and implement the outcomes of the summit of 2025 based on its 3 pillars: eradicate poverty, provide decent and productive employment for all, and promote social inclusion. We call on the international community to support our national efforts in order to achieve the goals of the Agenda 2030 in a manner that contributes to building a more equitable and sustainable societies. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Yemen, and I now give the floor to the representative of Bulgaria.
Through a nationwide survey, we have learned that youth participation in decision-making is the leading concern for young people. Over 73% of Bulgarian youth report a lack of interest in politics. This reflects a system that often excludes young people from decisions that affect their lives. This disconnect is alarming. As highlighted by the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development from 1995, empowering youth and ensuring their participation in decision-making processes is essential for shaping a better future. We cannot afford to ignore the voices of young people, especially when their involvement is crucial for the development of democratic culture. We believe youth participation through youth councils and advisory bodies must be institutionalized and integrated into policy making at the local, national, and international levels. As research in Bulgaria shows, the lack of interest and participation are usually connected with the lack of quality information and opportunities. In 2022, only around 10% of municipalities had budget for youth policy, local strategies for youth, and youth advisory bodies. A survey conducted later showed that only 27% of young people have participated in volunteering activities and 11% in youth councils. Thus, we believe that governments should create formal channels for young people to share their views and actively contribute to policy discussions that impact them through youth forums, public consultations, or youth-led organizations. Youth representative positions in existing parliamentary committees or ministries may ensure that youth perspectives are integrated with policy-making frameworks as described at the Reykjavik Declaration of the Council of Europe. This can only be achieved if we work to actively engage youth and ensure that their voices are heard and their perspectives are respected. By giving young people the opportunity to co-design policies, we not only empower them, but also create a more inclusive, relevant, and forward-thinking solutions for a generation that cannot wait. I now pass the floor to my co-delegate.
Thank you, Chair. In addition to concerns about political engagement, our survey also highlights the disconnect between education and employment for young people. With rapid advancements in new technologies, from artificial intelligence to automation, the demands of the workforce are shifting at an unprecedented pace. However, our educational systems have not kept up with these changes, and young people are often left with outdated skills the moment they enter the job market. According to the World Economic Forum, employers expect 39% of key skills required in the job market will change by 2030. We echo the Copenhagen Declaration, which urges action to address youth unemployment and underemployment. Young people must have access to education that provides them with the technological skills demanded in today's and tomorrow's job market, as well as academic knowledge. It's essential to ensure that entry-level jobs are accessible and offer fair wages to prevent the growing practice of unpaid internships, which deepen inequality. This issue is not only about jobs, it's about the future potential of youth. Without equal opportunities to succeed, young people will be excluded from fully participating in their economies and societies. This can be accomplished by providing young individuals with practical knowledge in these leading-edge fields and establishing partnerships between the public and the private sectors in the forms of apprenticeships and internship programs. We stand before you today with a call for action. Coordinated effort between governments, employers, and educators is crucial for creating pathways from education to meaningful employment, ensuring that youth can thrive and contribute to their communities. Cooperation between the various stakeholders and the participation of youth representatives in practices such as the EU Youth Guarantee can ensure that young people feel confident and are supported in their transition from education to the market. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the representatives of Bulgaria, and I now give the floor to the representative of Singapore.
Mr. Chair, with 5 years to go, we are regrettably far from achieving the 2030 agenda. The crises we face today, pandemics, climate change, geopolitical tensions, have all served to make achieving the 17 SDGs much more complex. Yet they also underscore the critical importance of social resilience and cohesion. Singapore is a small island state with very few natural resources. Our most valued resource is our people. That is why Singapore's governance has been built upon developing a fair and inclusive society that prioritizes building social resilience and social cohesion. Allow me to outline a few of our social development policies that exemplify this approach. First, Singapore believes that strong and stable families are the bedrock of our society. We are committed to supporting families and ensuring that Singaporeans can achieve their marriage and parenthood aspirations. Last year, we doubled the government-paid paternity leave to 4 weeks, increased unpaid infant care leave, and introduced a new shared parental leave scheme comprising up to 10 weeks of paid leave on top of existing parental leave entitlements. This will crucially help new parents, especially fathers, be more involved in caring for their children and encourage shared parental responsibility. We also released the tripartite guidelines on flexible work arrangements to foster a more inclusive workplace. With these initiatives, we aim to help parents and caregivers better manage work and family commitments, fostering social cohesion at both the family and community levels. Second, Singapore strongly believes that older persons should be enabled to age with purpose and dignity. By 2026, Singapore will reach super-aged status, where 21% of our population is aged 65 and above. We understand the importance of ensuring that older persons are given the support to live independently. That is why, in 2023, we launched Aged Well SG, an inter-ministry effort to support our seniors to age actively, stay socially connected, and be cared for within their communities. Age Well SG will undertake a nationwide transformation across the areas of housing, transport, active aging, and care services to anchor aging in the community. This includes the expansion of our network of active aging centres to make them accessible to every senior. Through a holistic approach, we aim to foster a stronger sense of community among the elderly, strengthen intergenerational bonds, and maintain the social fabric even as our demographic profile continues to evolve. Third, we believe that building an inclusive society in which persons with disabilities are empowered and enabled to participate fully is essential for true social cohesion. In line with our international obligations, including those under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, we launched the 4th iteration of our National Disability Roadmap in 2022, the Enabling Master Plan 2030. Under this plan, we set specific goals to strengthen support for lifelong learning, enable persons with disabilities to live independently, and create inclusive physical social environments. To support inclusive employment, Singapore has introduced a range of measures, including legislation to prohibit workplace discrimination, enhanced job placement and job coaching services, and provided job redesign grants and wage offsets to encourage employers to hire inclusively. We also launched our first pilot Enabling Business Hub in December 2023 to encourage more inclusive employment in growth industries and showcase how jobs could be redesigned to include employees with disabilities. Through these efforts, the employment rate of persons with disabilities has increased to 33% in 2023 from 28% in 2019. We aim to raise this further to 40% by 2030. Mr. Chair, these initiatives are some examples of Singapore's social development policies. As we approach the Second World Summit for Social Development, we must seize the opportunity to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. With collective resolve, we can build inclusive and resilient societies in which every individual and every family can participate fully. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Singapore. We have just heard the last speaker in the general discussion for this afternoon. The Commission has thus concluded its program of work for this meeting. The general discussion of sub-items A and B of Agenda Item 3 will resume tomorrow morning, 11 February, following the conclusion of the Ministerial Forum. I take this opportunity to remind delegations that the deadline for inscription in the list of speakers for the general discussion is tomorrow afternoon at 6 p.m. Before adjourning this meeting, I would also like to remind delegations that tomorrow at 10 a.m. the Commission will continue its consideration of Agenda Item 3A to hold a Ministerial Forum. The meeting is adjourned. I thank you.